stop trying to remember everything. Forgetting is not a bug in the brain's system, but it's actually a feature. It's what your brain was designed to do. Forgetting might sound like a flaw in your brain's design, but it's actually one of its most clever tricks. And the art of forgetting will not only make you a better thinker, but also a more effective learner. In fact, it'll actually even boost your creativity. I'm a doctor in neurology, working to bring the world of health, especially brain health, to you at home. So let's dive in. Have a look at Jeff right here. Jeff is a medical student drowning in textbooks and countless lecture notes to get through. And he's trying to cram every bit of information into his brain. But what happens is, as the exam approaches, his brain soon starts to forget all those tiny little details. And this is extremely frustrating for Jeff. But what he doesn't understand is that his brain is trying to do him a favor. You see, when Jeff forgets all these nitty-gritty details, his brain isn't actually being lazy. It's engaging in a process called synaptic downscaling or synaptic pruning. It's kind of similar to pruning a tree, where you cut away parts or branches of a tree to maintain a specific shape. And in a similar way, your brain weakens the connections that it feels it probably does not need. And side note, this is actually why I think medical school is actually not taught so well these days, because I don't think your brain is quite designed for parrot fashion regurgitation kind of learning. But that's a video for another day. So why does your brain decide to break away at seemingly less important information? Well, to make room for the process of memory consolidation. And this mostly happens in your sleep in the hippocampi, where your brain is working overtime to take the most crucial bits of information and consolidate that into the long term. But that's not all. Forgetting also helps Jeff avoid something called proactive interference. Imagine you're in a library that is completely chock-a-block full with old books, filled with old irrelevant information that you perhaps no longer need. When you now come with new books, new bits of information to try and file it into the library, there's just no space left. And so your brain has to constantly keep updating itself and getting rid of some of the things that are perhaps outdated or no longer of use to it. Because your brain knows that it always needs to stay agile and adaptable to new changes in its environment. Also, it's so that when Jeff makes mistakes, and let's be honest, we are all going to make mistakes, even medical students, even doctors, forgetting the wrong answers when you make those incorrect decisions is part of your brain's way of learning what is actually right. Let's say that you have a task at hand and you decide to go with choice number A initially for that task, but it turns out to be the incorrect choice. You'll have to go back to the beginning and go to choice number B, and that turns out to be the correct thing for that specific task. What your brain does is that it breaks away choice number A or the connections for choice number A and strengthens the connections for choice number B. And if you zoom into this whole process, it is the process of long-term potentiation, where your brain changes its wiring to make it easier for you to remember what is the correct decision for a specific task in future. And it's this balancing act between forgetting what's unnecessary and remembering what actually did work that your brain so crucially needs. But here's where things get even more interesting. Forgetting is actually the process that makes Jeff more creative and innovative in his thinking. Let's say he learns concept number A on one side, and then goes on to learn concept number X on the other side. But in between, he's also learned a gazillion other facts that your brain has to then get through. Once your brain actually goes through all these things and declutters itself, eventually there will be a moment where he can form a connection between A and X. And then two things that were seemingly unrelated suddenly become connected to each other. And it's this divergent thinking process that leads to more aha moments and creative solutions to many of life's problems. So what seems like a frustrating memory lapse is actually your brain's secret weapon. Of course, we all know that forgetting too much about every aspect of your life is a totally different story. But the actual act of forgetting is not just something that is a flaw. It's actually a carefully orchestrated process that helps you learn, adapt, and think creatively. And it's important for you to work with your brain because your brain is always working behind the scenes, making sure that you're not just holding on to knowledge, but you're actually using the knowledge that you learned in the smartest possible way. But if you do want to go and boost your learning even further, I dive into the neuroscience of just how to do that in this video right here. I'll see you there.